Before I get started with this video, let me give a shout out to my patron on Patreon, Jason, for sending this story to me. And it is coming out of Kenosha, Wisconsin. And usually I can get and understand stories when I get a glimpse of what it is I'm about to talk about, or even if I have gone and skimmed through the article to get an idea of what it is I'm about to talk about. But this story right here, actually, for once, and this is probably a historical moment right here, leaves me very confused about some things, because I read through the article already that I'm going to read to you about this person, and I still don't get why this person did what they did, like what the point, more so I should say, of why they did what they did. But this person's name is Jesse T. Kline, but he goes by the name of Maserati Mike, which sounds like the name of a failed rapper. And this guy recently went out and he was armed with a rifle, and he was walking outside of the courthouse where the Rittenhouse trial is being held at. And people were wondering, like, what is this guy doing? What is his deal? And all types of things like that. But as you can see, well, in this picture, this is both the same person. It's just that the one on the left, he doesn't have any facial hair, and the one on the right is a more current look of how he is today. But this guy actually used to be a police officer in Ferguson. Now, what I found out about this so far, and when you think about Ferguson, you think of Mike Brown. That's because during what was going on with Mike Brown back in 2014, he was a cop at the time in that same department that Darren Wilson, who was the murderer of Mike Brown, at the same department. And he was fired from that department, and now he goes around calling himself Maserati Mike. And even with that little bit of information right there, I'm still confused about what this guy's MO is. I don't know. But I'm going to go ahead and read the article, and hopefully y'all can make some sense of it. The man who called himself Maserati Mike and showed up Wednesday with a long rifle outside the Kenosha County Courthouse is a fired Ferguson, Missouri police officer. Jesse T. Kline confirmed his identity to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel on Thursday. Also, in response to an inquiry from the Journal-Sentinel, Ferguson Police Chief Frank McCall Jr. wrote in an email, "I can confirm that this is former officer Jesse Kline, who was terminated by the Ferguson Police Department several years ago." In recent days, Kline has been seen outside the Kenosha County Courthouse as the jury deliberates in the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse. On Wednesday, when he showed up with the long rifle, Kenosha County Sheriff's deputies asked him to put away the rifle, and he complied. Thursday, he was seen carrying a gun case. It could not be determined if it was empty. He was also speaking out of a bullhorn and parading with a dog. He appeared to be in Kenosha to support Rittenhouse. Well, now we can kind of see why he was there. But the fact of the matter is that he was able to walk around with that long rifle and still get away with walking around with it. Which, now that I'm looking at it and hearing this and seeing some of the pictures, kind of reminds you of what Rittenhouse did last year when he was walking around with that rifle, and he, after shooting 3 people, killing 2, he was able to basically just get apprehended, if you want to call it that, while still having the rifle in hand. Much like this guy right here. Only difference is he didn't shoot anybody. According to media reports, Kline was arrested in August 2018 in the St. Louis suburb of Maplewood. He allegedly followed a woman he had been in a romantic relationship with to another man's home, so he was basically stalking. KSDK.com reported that according to charging documents, Kline jumped out of the man's backyard and pointed a gun at him. When the man refused to listen to Kline, Kline poked the man in the chest with the barrel of the gun. Kline then called the woman vulgar names and drove away from the home. Kline, off duty at the time of the incident, was charged with stalking, unlawful use of a weapon, and assault. In January 2020, the charges were dropped, according to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. The newspaper reported Judge Joseph L. Walsh III dismissed the case because the man's ex-girlfriend and a witness would not cooperate and failed to appear for court hearings and depositions, according to the office of St. Louis County Prosecutor Wesley Bell. When I hear stuff like that, I can't help but think that maybe there was some kind of a threat that came their way. Because who wouldn't show up to court for something like that? Like, this guy was stalking his ex-girlfriend, and basically making threats to the man she was currently seizing, jumping out of the backyard and bushes. Like, dude, what's so this is a person that's not wrapped too tight. Let's see. The newspaper reported that Kline was hired by Ferguson police in November 2015 and was a member of the patrol K9 division before his arrest. Ferguson was at the scene of an unrest in 2014 after the fatal shooting of Michael Brown by a police officer. So he came in the following year after Mike Brown. Kline's identity was first reported on Twitter by @thatDanishGuy. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce their name, with additional details from @ChadLoader. So this guy's out here because he just wants attention. It's clear that's what it is. He must be on his John Wick shit because they said he was there with a dog. You know how John Wick is always there and he has a dog? I guess this guy felt the same way and doing the same thing. But like I said, even still reading that, all I got from it is he was walking out there. He had a long rifle. He had a bullhorn. He had a dog. He was out there allegedly, supposedly supporting Rittenhouse outside of the courthouse. This guy has a history of stalking and taunting people. He used to work in the Ferguson Police Department. A year after what happened with Mike Brown, he got fired from that job, and now he calls himself Maserati Mike, even though his name is Jesse T. Kline. And he basically, he was able to just get arrested even while carrying around that weapon. But he actually did something that actually proved a point about what it is when it comes to black people owning a gun of any size versus when they do it. Now, if y'all remember back in 2016 when what happened with Michael Johnson, it was, and everything was starting to happen and pop off. If y'all don't remember, I'll jog your memory. There were two brothers, like two actual related blood brothers, black men, who were walking around with their weapons, like, and those were some big guns they were carrying. Like, you couldn't miss those even if you were blind. And they apprehended them. They arrested them and basically had them in holding, I think like maybe in an interrogation room or something like that, because around that time, the shooting had already started to happen, but they didn't know who it was. It was a mystery. They just knew it was some people that was being shot, mainly cops. I think it was only cops. But they took them in because they had guns and they had to let them go because it turned out it wasn't them. And I don't know if they got their guns back or not. I know they didn't get an apology. And I'm saying that to say this. Whenever black people have their guns, it's always this level of suspicion of why they're carrying a gun. Versus when they have it, it's like, oh, it's just business as usual. That's why Kyle Rittenhouse was able to run to the cops the way that he did with his hands up, even though he still had the gun on him after he just shot and killed two people and severely injured one. And this guy was just walking around freely with a bullhorn and his long barrel rifle and a dog, and they just apprehended him because he complied. And Palm Color loves that comply word, even though they be the main ones that be so hypocritical with the word and the action of being compliant. Maserati Mike. I think that's the funniest part of this whole story, in which he calls himself that name. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this story down in the comments.